On today's show, Laura Heywood interviews.
From Kinky Boots on Broadway and his cabaret phenomenon, Classic Whitney Alive, Kevin Smith Kirkwood is here. Welcome to Laura Heywood Interviews. I'm Laura Heywood. My guest today is a tireless performer, and I mean tireless. He was in the original company of Kinky Boots on Broadway, which ran for 2,500 performances, almost none of which he ever missed. He was strutting and dancing and posing H to T, as they say. He also performed on almost every single day off, creating and mastering the show he's here to promote today, Classic Whitney Houston Alive, which, by the way, is spelled with an exclamation point. The show, which he's been cultivating for 4.5 years, is a tribute to Whitney Houston, the artist who inspired him as a child high belting in church in Ohio and continues to inspire him today. This is most definitely in tribute to Whitney, not a parody of her. Kevin embodies the spirit and vocal capacity as well as the personality and aura of the superstar, making it possible to believe that we are truly going back in time to relive or live for the very first time the experience of seeing Whitney Houston alive. Please join me in welcoming Kevin Smith Kirkwood.
Thank you. Wow.
You.
Now that is an intro.
Well, I did my research.
You certainly did. I'm impressed.
And also, we've known each other for a while. I've interviewed you before.
It's true.
I got to sit down with Kevin at Broadway Con with a bunch of the other Kinky Boots Angels.
That's right.
Some of you just were with that show from beginning to end.
Yes, actually, all of us that you talked to. Well, with the exception of Charlie. Charlie Sutton left and came back.
Right.
But otherwise, Kyle and Joey also left and came back. But Kyle and I were there from the beginning.
Everybody's got to take a second to breathe, except you, I guess.
Listen, I'll breathe when I'm dead.
I mean,
in this business. No, it was. There were about 13 people who closed the show who also had opened the show.
That's amazing.
It's a testament to how much we loved the show. We
Right.
loved our jobs. It was just a great show to be a part of, and the cast all felt like family, after 6 years. So yes, a few people left and came back after 2 years because they realized how good it was.
Absolutely. I mean, I sort of felt like family, and I was just an audience member, although I think I saw it close to 20 times.
I love you 20 times, yes.
Well, I wanted to see all the Lolas, and I wanted to see all the Charlies, and I did miss Tiki Barber when he went in as Dawn at the end of the run.
He was so great. We loved Tiki. Shout out to Tiki.
I was actually going to ask you, Tiki and I worked together way back in the day at Sirius XM when he and his brother had a show on the NFL network, and I was doing a show based on Maxim magazine. And so we didn't work that closely together, but I did know them a little bit.
That is amazing. He's a great guy.
Can he sing?
Well, let's just say his character didn't have to sing very much.
Yeah,
but he had I think 2 lines, and he did really well with his 2 lines.
I bet.
But he was great as Don. He's a great.
But
Don.
I did get to see Wayne Brady and Todrick Hall and Jake Shears and Kristen Maldonado. You guys really had some incredible folks who were making their Broadway debuts, a lot of them.
We were so lucky, and they all came in like gangbusters. They were happy to be there. Mark Ballas from Dancing with the Stars was amazing. We were just very lucky. People.
Did it feel like they were guest stars as opposed to like replacements? I mean, I think with the exception maybe of Tiki, it didn't feel like stunt casting,
right?
Because they were all were really talented and really suited for the parts. And certainly for a role like Lola, you can't just throw a name in there and expect that that's going to sell tickets if they can't sing and dance it.
Exactly. Well, the beauty of the Kinky Boots is that it didn't hang on one person. It didn't depend on having a name or a star in the show. So, you could find a celebrity who was genuinely talented, as opposed to just worrying about, sticking in someone who can't do it, but because they can sell it.
Right.
So we were lucky in that way. But yes, we ended up getting a lot of people who have theater backgrounds. I mean, Todrick Hall was on Broadway. Before,
I sat down with Todrick when he was doing it, and we really hit it off. Just like the sweetest guy.
He's one of my favorites. We're friends to this day. I
Amazing.
love Todrick.
Yay. Okay, so Kinky Boots is in the past. Although it's still touring and, it's still alive. But for you, speaking of alive,
exactly.
We're focusing on Whitney Houston, which, by the way, you've been doing this show for quite a bit. But I understand you've sort of rebranded or like put a little subtitle on this one, which at June 24th at Joe's Pub, it's going to be Classic Whitney Alive, The Rainbow Show.
Exactly.
So what does that mean, and what can audiences who have seen you before expect that they haven't seen before in Whitney Alive?
Well, we always try to every show change it up a little bit. So it's always a different set list. There are certain standards of Whitney's that you have to do, of course. But so we try to make every show a little bit different, because we actually have people who've come to see every performance, which is amazing. And then last summer we did a thing called where we did a limited residency, and we called it Volume 1 and Volume 2, and did 2 different set lists on 2 different nights, and that worked really well. But we always wanted to do a Pride show, a show that where Whitney could come back and say thank you to the LGBT community for supporting her, so we thought that this year, it being World Pride, 50 years celebrating World Pride, that it would be a great year to actually do the Pride show. So what people can expect is Pride-themed banter. Also,
and all the banter, we should tell everybody, is created from actual interviews that she's done and actual banter she had on the stage. You're not really improvising this.
No.
Or at least if you are, you're improvising it from a catalog that you studied intensely. Speaking of research.
Exactly. Thank you. Yes. Oh, I've poured over hours and hours of interviews, live concert footage. Because for those of you who don't know, the concert, basically, the concept is that she's reincarnated in my body to deliver a one-night-only retrospective concert of some of her favorite live performances. So we take live performances that she did on award shows or in concert, and we do them arrangement for arrangement, riff for riff. And so I also then take interview clips and, like I said, banter from stage, and compile the script. And I actually write a script and memorize it for every show. And that's how we sort of present the theatrical conceit that it's actually Whitney, as opposed to me just getting up and singing some Whitney songs or in a dress. And it's worked really well. But this time we're bringing back, we always have guests, first of all. And we have background singers who play her mom, Sissy Houston, her brother, Gary Houston, and her blonde piano-playing musical director friend, Bet Sussman. We also usually have a guy who plays Bobby Brown. And then we have other guests that she's duetted with. We've had Mary J. Blige and Kelly Price, and Luther Vandross.
And these are all actors playing these folks, right?
Exactly.
Like, you haven't actually gotten any of her real collaborators yet.
Well, yeah, exactly. That's down the road.
I mean, can you imagine if you were like, "Hey, Mary J. Blige,
exactly,
want to pop by Joe's Pub on the 24th?"
Exactly. I mean, listen, down the road.
I bet you would. I bet that actor would understand if you were like, "I need to just pull you for this one show because Mary's coming."
I think she'd be okay with that.
I mean, I hope you've asked, because what's the worst that could happen? She'd say no.
Well, yes. Also, part of the theatrical fun and of the show is that we're all playing characters. So even though I'm in a wig, the background singers are in wigs playing these characters. The guests who come on are in wigs. They're playing the characters, and we have a different guest every time. This year, we've decided to have guests that are specifically sort of near and dear to the LGBT community. So like Aretha Franklin, George Michael.
Yeah, so those two
and Judy Garland
in particular, those 3 in particular are not going to be actually making any live appearances.
And then it all fits into the they're coming down from heaven to inhabit our bodies for an evening.
So are you spiritual? Like, is there any part of you that feels like Whitney actually is revisiting Earth through your body?
Listen, I am actually very spiritual, and I definitely believe. I mean, we can talk about religion, but then we can talk about spirituality.
I'm talking about like reanimation, or I'm talking about specifically in terms of Whitney.
Right. I know. I was gonna say, I think that I believe in energy and spirits, and I definitely believe, and people even said that when we do the show, Whitney is actually in the room. I actually do feel like I feel her spirit in the room, in me, in the audience, and that's the power of art and music. You know what I mean? When a group of people can get together and conjure up the energy of an artist who's no longer with us, I think spiritually they are there in the room, especially when it's about love.
Right, exactly. And so much of the public awareness of Whitney at this moment in time, certainly her, The Bodyguard and all of her hits, but unfortunately, I think the way that her life ended has superseded some of that in terms of the public consciousness. And I think it would be really easy in this sort of cynical time we're living in to just do a send up of some of that unfortunate time at the end of her life. And I don't know that her spirit would be in the room for that.
Exactly.
Whereas
That's what
you
I
are
mean.
taking us back to classic Whitney with so much love in a way that I can imagine her loved ones could come and see and celebrate without feeling embarrassed or offended.
Thank you. And because that's my goal. And people ask all the time. Well, people say, oh, it's so sad when I think about Whitney. It's so sad. It's so sad. Her life was so sad, and the tragic ending. And I think you're right. It starts to overshadow the joy, the love, the fun, the talent, the music she left us, and the feelings that stuff creates, and all of the things that she was able to accomplish in the short time that she was on this earth. All of that should not be overshadowed by the tragedy, and that's what my show is about, is uplifting that part of her memory and her legacy. So we don't, some people ask, do you explore the dark parts of her? No, not really. I acknowledge, we are acknowledging that she's no longer with us and that she's passed. But there are documentaries and films and articles about, everything else. My show is about celebrating the legacy and the fun and the humor and of course the music.
Of course,
the good
music.
as we say, the music and the good times.
So how does Bobby play into that when he appears on stage?
Well, in the past we've done we've had Bobby in 1997 at her Constitution Hall concert live from DC. It was called Classic Whitney Live. Get it?
Yes, I get it.
So he came out and did a dance to Whitney singing her version of Mr. Bojangles as a tribute to Sammy Davis Jr.
Wow.
And
I got to YouTube that.
Please YouTube it. It's stunning. It's stunning. Even if you don't like Bobby Brown, his talent was undeniable. He was a very talented
Look, I'm
guy.
OG New Edition.
Okay,
so
there we go.
I love some Bobby Brown.
Me too. Come on. But the man could dance, and it with her singing and him dancing, it is just a beautiful, special moment. So we've used that in our show before, and it always gets a great response. And
So
then
you're
he
not
makes
exploring necessarily the dark side of their relationship.
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely
And
not.
no Bobby Christina.
Well,
Give
no,
it to me. Tell me.
Well, we used to. We did. I think maybe the first 2 or 3 shows, we had actually a young man, a young boy, a young child. Yes, come out, a young actor.
How
You
young?
should see
Like-
the look
like
on
a
Laura's
kid?
face right now.
A kid?
A kid.
An actual child?
An actual child. Come out in drag, in pigtails, and a little dress, and we would do this moment where Bobby Christina would come on stage with Whitney on tour and just do her little part in My Love Is Your Love.
That's cute.
You know what I mean? And this actually happened on stage. Like, we're not making something up. We're not making fun of it. And I would explain to this young man where we are not making fun of her. We are not making fun of the situation. I want you to play it for truth. We love each other. Whitney and her mom, Whitney loved her daughter and her daughter loved her mom. And you could see that on stage. And I would say, Bobby Christina would be a little shy at first, but but she would then open up on stage, which was true, and you could see. And Bobby Chris loved being on stage with Whitney. Even in the later years, there was a Good Morning America appearance where Christina came out and actually sang a little bit. So,
so even then, it wasn't a send up. It was a celebration.
No. Now, don't get me wrong. I understand that there is humor, in the fact that I'm a man in a dress and a wig, and there was a young boy in a dress and a wig. It just and most people were okay with it. It just was the one thing where your friends will tell you the truth.
I hope so.
Do you know what I mean?
Really your friends.
And so my close friends were like, I mean, if there was one thing you don't need, it's that. And I totally got it. But kudos to the young man who did it, and he was amazing. Dougie Baldeo, love you. And he was also a young Lola.
I wondered whether you had gone there for your casting.
Well, I mean, if you're in the building with a youngster who's got those talents.
And who can walk in heels.
Exactly. Oh, he could not only walk, he could kick and split in the heels.
Oh, my gosh.
He was amazing.
I hope he practices that every day so his body just adjusts to it as he grows up.
Oh, he's amazing. He's a little star.
All right. Well, I got you off track and sort of going back in time. And the entire show is about going back in time, so we're going to play with the timeline a little bit here. Let's stop talking about what the show used to be. Let's talk about it, what it is now. You mentioned that this Pride performance, which is coming up on the 24th, and by the way, I'm going to just sidebar for a second and say, people who are listening to Laura Heywood Interviews live right now have the opportunity to get tickets to see you at Joe's Pub on the 24th. People who are listening to the free podcast version through Apple Podcasts have already missed their chance to see this show. So we're going to use this as an opportunity to remind people that if they want every Laura Heywood Interviews episode a week early and have the chance to actually see the stuff we're talking about,
that's right,
they have to subscribe through dnrstudios.com/Laura. And also, if you just want to help me have the resources to continue making the free version, throw a few bucks my way through dnrstudios.com/Laura, because if everybody listened to the free version, I wouldn't even be able to make the show. Anyway, for you people who are listening for free, there definitely will be future performances of Whitney Alive, or Classic Whitney Alive.
Mm-hmm.
You're not. It's not a total loss, but I never miss an opportunity to plug the fact that there is a way to get the episodes
subscribe, early. People, come on, get the exclusive content and be in the know. Don't you want to be in the know?
Plus, if you're listening live, you can call in. Anyway, I don't need to be doing an infomercial, except for your show.
Yeah, you've got to pay the bills.
So June 24th, Joe's Pub, the Pride Rainbow Edition of Whitney Houston Alive. Tell me, I know I keep calling it different variations. Is it Whitney Houston Alive, Classic Whitney Alive, Classic Whitney Houston Alive?
It's Classic Whitney Alive.
As a play on the name of her show, Classic Whitney Live.
Correct. And a double entendre with keeping her spirit alive.
Of course.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. Okay, so...
But this incarnation is called The Rainbow Show because we're going to celebrate 50 years of World Pride.
Will you be addressing Whitney's own sexuality?
Well, you'll just have to come and see, won't you?
That sounds like a yes to me. Because, it was nothing was ever confirmed, but it was heavily rumored that she had a relationship with a close personal friend and that her family members have described her sexuality as fluid. And she certainly was a gay icon, not necessarily as an out member of the LGBTQ community, but as a supporter and as somebody that many young queer people looked up to.
Right. I mean, listen, it's no secret that Whitney denied being gay. Mm-hmm. Even in the interviews that I've poured over, she actually performed in 1999 at New York City's Gay Pride Parade. Pier dance rather, and she was interviewed which we're also creating that set list. We're recreating that set list.
Oh yeah,
because it's 20 years later, so we have to. So, but she actually, said in an interview for that with MTV. She said, I am not gay. This is about you. This is about them. I am an entertainer. That's what I do. The LGBT community has always loved and supported me, and I appreciate that. And she said that she didn't know how the crowd would react. And then she said what she received was just so much love, mad love. But again, Whitney was not, out of an out member of the LGBT community. So I don't like to make things up as that much,
Sure.
and so there's no resources for me to pull from where she talks about her sexuality. So you can't expect we're not going to go that deep into
Right.
that. Really, let's just be honest. It's more, and she would have never talked about that on stage anyway.
Right.
But
it is a pride show.
It is a pride show, but even when she performed for Pride, it was about celebrating the community's pride and thanking the community for always being there for her, because you're right. She was an icon for the community, and the community, even in some of the later years where a lot of people had abandoned her, the gay community kept her music in rotation on radio stations and in dance clubs, across the country, and made dance hits where she didn't have dance hits for a while. Especially with the My Love Is Your Love album.
I will never forget that. I was living in London for a semester. I was in college at the time that song came out, and it was so hot in the London dance clubs, that remix.
Yes.
And it was a moment. Whenever I hear that song, I am brought back to a very specific moment in history, and I think it any song that can do that, or any artist that can do that really does transform you in time. It's just one of the reasons music is so magical.
It's true. And her music, she was the best at it. And her music, all of her music does that for people and for the world. And I think that's why people are so sad and why people miss her and her talent, because of what her contribution was to music and art in the world. And yeah, and but that album in particular, I agree with you, and especially it was such an amazing R&B album and an R&B turn for her. But then all of those remixes took off. My Love Is Your Love, Heartbreak Hotel, It's Not Right But It's Okay. The clubs in the community kept those tunes pumping, and it was amazing.
Do you think that people have come to see this show who followed Whitney on tour and now want to see her live again to relive that? Are her fans coming to this in addition to your fans?
Yes, and yes. There are people who are lifelong fans. There are fan club members of hers that have come to my show. There are people who say, I had the pleasure of seeing Whitney live and at Radio City Music Hall, and
now they're seeing her at Joe's Pub.
And it's the biggest compliment of all, for
the biggest compliment of all. I mean, you
that's
you
good.
opened that door for
I
me.
kind of did, and you walked right into it. I love it. That was good, but it's true. It humbles me, and I love it.
How did you recreate so many of her actual costumes? Because I can only imagine that she had a fortune of a wardrobe budget.
She
and,
did.
I don't imagine that a General Joe's Pub show gets that kind of fortune.
It does not.
But I see you in fur coats, and you're in these crystal-laden outfits, and you have recreated, it seems like down to the rhinestone, some of her actual looks. It almost is like you broke into the Smithsonian to steal her iconic gowns, and you're wearing them.
Also the biggest compliment, and not just to me, but to my costume designers.
Can we throw out a name here?
Oh my goodness. So the white tracksuit, which is the America tracksuit that I like to open the show with, was designed and built by Marcus DeJong, who's a young guy and a friend of mine. And then the bodysuits I've actually worn a different bodysuit for every show. I've never repeated a bodysuit or a gown, actually.
Oh, nice.
But Whitney loved a catsuit or a bodysuit.
Yes, she did.
So the first few were shopped, were bought online, and then, but since then, my good friend and former dresser at Kinky Boots, Kurt Kielman, has been creating my bodysuits couture from scratch.
Amazing.
He's amazing. And then my gowns, the ones that I've been able to, some of them were shopped also, but then the ones that recreate iconic looks have all been created by the amazing Martha Smith. She does a lot of theater. She does some TV work. She's an amazing costume designer. She's a really good friend of my best friend, Natalie Joy Johnson. She's made a lot of Natalie Joy's costumes, and that's how we were introduced. And she is the one that recreated the South Africa look and the red dress with the beads, and she's just so amazing. And wait till you see what she has created, recreated for this show.
Oh my
I'm
gosh.
just so indebted to them all. But especially Martha. I mean, she works for a costume design company, so she has access to, you know, the head costumer for Wicked and for the Metropolitan Opera, and she pulls in, you know, people to, what do you think of this? What do you think of this?
Wow.
What she's able to accomplish is amazing, and people have said whoever does your costumes deserves an award.
I
and
agree.
they
I
are
was
right.
wondering if, like, there are cabaret awards. Do they have a costume category?
You know,
and can we petition for that to get started if they don't?
I don't know that there is actually. I don't know the Mac Awards or the what are the other ones?
There was the Broadway World Awards existed for a while. I don't know if they still do.
They do cabaret, but I don't think they do costume
Yeah.
for cabaret. And I know the Mac Awards does. I think it's a
I mean,
brilliant
seriously,
idea.
let's.
Well, listen. Martha would snatch the award hands down. I mean, what she's able to recreate, and it's these.
Wait, it's Martha Smith?
Smith.
Maybe we
yes.
should call it the Martha Smith Award. If she's like that much of a hands down winner, then let's just name it after her.
I agree. I don't think she would have a problem with that.
You and I can just award that every year. The Martha Smith Award in cabaret costuming.
Done and done.
Okay. I am really curious about the difference in your process for getting into character for somebody who is a real life human being that you love and admire, like Whitney Houston, and the angel that you got to invent in Kinky Boots. Because while there's part of me that's like, oh, well, they're both like, you're quote unquote getting into drag and you're walking in heels and you're a woman, you know, but it's like, to indicate that that's the same process would sort of be like implying that all women are the same. And I think that that's a really offensive take.
Yeah.
So I want to know about the differences, whether it's in your actual, like putting on the makeup and what contouring you do or whatever, and who you feel embodying you when you are like acting the role. Because one of the things that I love so much about you as a performer is that you're not just wearing the mask, you're such an incredible actor. And I think sometimes, especially with drag, it's really easy to see it as a costume instead of as a character. And so while I'm interested in the costume, as we just learned from the 10 minutes we went on talking about the costumes, I'm also interested in how you differentiate recreating Whitney versus creating the angel.
Wow, that is an amazing question. I love that. And because there is differences. And, you know, with Kinky Boots, it was, well, first of all, we were in a dressing room with all of the angels and the swings.
One of my great
angels.
regrets is that I never took you guys up on your invitation to visit.
Oh, you would have had the time of your life. We always said that it was a reality show in the making to be in that dressing room with, you know, 8 or 9 fun, talented, smart, opinionated gay men all beating their faces at the same time getting into drag. We'd play music, we'd have political debates, we'd talk about drag race. You know what I mean? It was just the most amazing experience to be in that room. So that always informed what we were about to do. We knew we were about to go on stage and be sassy, fun, fabulous, fierce drag queens. So it made sense that we would sit around with each other and kiki and make each other laugh and, you know, listen to music. So, you know, that was more about just getting ourselves ready to have fun and be in that fun angel space, because the angels were fun. Jerry Mitchell used to say, "Don't be too fierce." Not
Really?
no fierce. Oh yes. He would say, "Too much fierce face. Too much fierce face. Smile. Have fun. Have fun. Inviting. Inviting."
Because I was going to say, you guys were all pretty fierce.
Well, yes, but fierce like I'm unapproachable. I'm moody. I'm brooding or trying to do a model face, as opposed to I'm up, I'm bright, I'm fun, I'm sassy, I'm vibrant, I'm alive, sort of fun, approachable. And so the dressing room experience, painting our faces, sort of helped to start that and bring that out of us. Whereas with Whitney, I'm getting dressed, and I usually have my own dressing room. And first, I start off with steaming, and I start off playing gospel music, and really just sort of centering myself. And then I can start, once I'm ready to start my makeup, I usually switch over to some Whitney Houston, and so that I'm really getting into the spirit and the mood in a way that I think that she might. I think it's rumored that she liked to listen to gospel music while and warm up to gospel music vocally. So I think I'm more getting centered and focused about what I have to do, because I'm really respectful to what I'm about to do and what is about to happen, and I want it to be centered and focused so that I can deliver what I need to deliver effectively, especially because, being in Kinky Boots as an angel with a group of 6 is different than standing on stage for 75 minutes in a spotlight as Whitney Houston belting for 75 minutes.
How does your voice handle, she has one of the most legendary voices in history, and you can belt,
Yes,
but can
thank you.
anybody really... I don't know. Obviously you are doing it,
but listen, it's okay. It's okay.
Could you do this eight times a week? If
no,
what
8 times a week?
I guess my question is, how in the world do you put that kind of power and focus into your voice without hurting it?
Well, first, thank you. When I have a show coming up, first, I'm always trying to take care of myself vocally. But when the show's coming up, there's a lot of vitamin C and echinacea and a lot of extra sleep and a lot of steaming and some acupuncture and a massage. And especially now that I'm not in the show, there's a lot of running. And the gym, and just sort of trying to stay in shape, keep my lung capacity.
And is that about breath control?
Absolutely.
And fitting into the gowns? Let's be serious.
All of the above. Whitney looked a certain way, so the aesthetic has to be right. But yes, then the lung capacity's got to be ready and on point. And then, of course, I have to warm up extensively. And it's just being careful and using the training, my vocal training that I've received, and I'm lucky that I also have a naturally high belting voice, so the sort of, I guess for lack of a better word, the tools are already there.
Yeah.
So it's about maintaining and protecting the tools. Do I think I could do the show 8 times a week? I don't know about 8 times a week, but we were looking to mount an off-Broadway production. Actually, last summer we were looking into it, but it would have been somewhere between 2 to 5 times a week, which you can do on a modified off-Broadway schedule. But so we are interested in longer runs. But I don't know that 8 times a week. I don't know that Whitney would have done it 8 times a week.
Sure.
But,
that's one of the big differences between a recording artist and a Broadway actor. I guess there are artists who've done 2 shows in a night before, but I've never heard of a concert performer doing
8 shows a week.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe. I don't even know, because I was about to say, wasn't Bruce Springsteen just on Broadway?
Yeah, but he was doing 5 shows a week.
Exactly. And especially since we do a lot of this stuff in her original key, or maybe a half step lower, it's a challenging evening to sing. But Thankfully, it's working.
Yeah, and thankfully you're not on vocal rest right now because I'm
It's true.
excited that you got to come in and talk to me. Can we
It's
go
true.
like way, way back in time? I know you grew up singing in the church, and that you didn't you perform a Whitney Houston song in a like showcase or something when you were 12?
Wow, you are good. You are good.
I want to know when you first discovered her. Like, can you pinpoint the moment you first heard her voice?
I see it was a summer day. I see that we were all playing outside in the neighborhood, outside of a neighbor, Judy Jordan's house, because Judy Jordan had a record player. We didn't have a record player. We were poor. We had an 8-track player. And Judy had a record player, and she had Whitney's first album. And I remember the first time I heard Saving All My Love for You blaring out of that record player, man, clear as day. And that was 1985. And she just,
So
I
you
was
were like
mesmerized.
1?
Yes, exactly. But just very in tune to music. And I think it was like 9, 8, you know, and the sound of her voice spoke to me. And then I looked at the album cover, the one where she's just in the slicked back hair with the light pink dress on with the pearls.
Talk
that
about
image,
a fashion moment.
Listen, that image was amazing, and it was burned and seared into my consciousness. And I was sort of mesmerized from then on for sure.
How did you end up singing her song in that showcase?
Oh, it was a neighborhood center called the Friends Program. And every year we had a sort of graduation, for lack of a better word, sort of a culmination of the year where we presented things to the board members in the community, things that we'd worked on, and we'd do a skit or two, and sort of like also a little bit of a talent show. So I closed the show with singing "The Greatest Love of All" a cappella.
Wow.
And I guess I must have been, 6th grade, 5th grade, and one of the board members heard me sing it and said that I had talent and offered to anonymously pay for me to have voice lessons.
So amazing.
To this day, I still don't know who that person was.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
so
yeah.
it was anonymous even to you.
Oh, yeah. Oh, they did not want us to know who was paying for the
my
voice
gosh.
lessons. And they didn't want any credit, just thought, this is a kid who has some talent. I'm going to do something nice.
And you still don't know.
I still
That's
don't
incredible.
know.
You think that this is the kind of person who would come out of the woodwork, and be like, yo, can I get a couple of opening night tickets to Kinky Boots? It's been me
Listen.
all along.
Listen, I tell this story as often as I possibly can because I would love for that to happen. Are you kidding me? To get the chance to say thank you and to get the chance to say, you never know how a random act of kindness is going to make the biggest difference in a person's life, and that definitely was that for me. And I'd always sang in church, but that was an outside validation for me, that someone else said, oh, no, you have something here, kid. You should have the opportunity to explore that talent and develop that talent. It just, it was a huge validation for me, So, yeah, it was a special moment. Like, I'll never forget it. And I'll never stop telling that story.
Good.
Yeah.
I want to tell it to everybody too. I want to call the Friends Center and be like, who was on your board? And, and then start narrowing it down.
Actually, well,
We should do
Friends
an
Center,
investigative reportive podcast or something where we're like, the search for the mystery donor.
Listen, we could actually, because the Friends Center I don't think is anymore. I actually think that
Googling
housing project actually I think is no more. I think they tore that down a while ago. However, I recently became friends with Ms. Teresa Brown, who was one of the counselors at the Friends program, and we're friends on Facebook. Hi, shout out Ms. Brown. How you doing? She used to let us come down to her house and watch WrestleMania all the neighborhood kids would come down, and she'd have popcorn and hot dogs. And actually, in that very same presentation that we did, Ms. Brown played me and my brothers played her sons. She played my mother in a little skit about family. It was, wow, I can't believe I'm remembering that. But shout out to Ms. Brown, yes, and she's a wonderful lady.
Oh, I love hearing origin stories. And the fact that yours involves WrestleMania to me is everything.
Back when it was WWF.
Yeah.
I mean.
So you're playing Whitney on a fairly regular basis, a couple times a year at least, right?
Yes.
Do you ever need a break? Are you ever like, oh my gosh, let me play a different character for a second?
Well, I've been lucky so far because, I was doing Kinky Boots for 6 years.
Sure.
Whitney actually was my break
Right.
from Kinky Boots. I'm an artist. I always like to stay busy, stay creative. Whitney's my 4th solo show in New York City. And then I've produced and co-written 2 off-Broadway shows with some friends from college. One was Karate Kid the Musical. I was Dial-In for Negroes. So I always like to stay busy and constantly creating new things. So I haven't gotten tired of Whitney yet is the answer, because Whitney has been my outside creative outlet. And also it's given me some amazing opportunities. I've gotten to perform her around the world on Atlantis cruises.
That's
I
amazing.
actually got to perform in Whitney's house.
What?
Yes, in
I don't
her
know how
great
this
room.
didn't come up in my research. When did that happen?
That was it 2 years ago? The people who own her estate in Jersey came to see the show, and they loved the show, and they invited me to come to. They have a Halloween party every year at the mansion, and they invited me to come, and they said, if you want to perform, you can totally perform. And I said, do I want to perform? You mean in Whitney's house? Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then they gave me a private tour 2 days before of the whole estate, so I got to actually spend some time and feel the energy and the space and the grounds. It was amazing. So then I performed. Oh, this is an interesting part. So Whitney's family members, some of them were going to be there, including sister-in-law. I won't say which one.
Okay.
So we had to navigate that. They warned the family. They said, all right, we're having this guy who does a tribute to Whitney Houston. He's going to perform at the show. And their response was, respectfully, thank you for telling us, we'll come after.
Okay.
So what we did was we were going to do 2 sets, and I was going to do the first set as Whitney and then change before they got there, so that not to be disrespectful, because it was still soon after she had passed then too. And then I did the second set as Grace Jones in a Grace Jones costume.
That.
You know what I mean? But then when I met
wig
the family,
necessary.
exactly. Well, I had a flat top wig.
Got it.
but I got to get dressed in her closet, in her bedroom. There's a picture of me at her vanity dressed as her, sitting looking at a picture of her. It's very
So the
meta.
new owners have kept it as Whitney had it.
Yes, they restored the grounds. They restored the pool. A lot of the furniture is the same. The white piano in the great room is the same. They did amazing work at restoring it, and they've taken very good care of it, and they don't exploit it. People have tried to come in for photo shoots and interviews and TV sets, and they are very respectful of the legacy of it, which is why the family actually is friendly with them and comes to their parties. So long story shorter, I met the family. They said, oh, you're in Kinky Boots? Oh, wow. Well, and then they were like, oh, well, you're actually successful then. And I thought, oh, right. Well, because you don't know me. You don't know,
And I'm sure there are a ton of Whitney Houston impersonators out there. And you're not doing like a Vegas review. Not that there's anything wrong with the Vegas review.
Sure.
By the way, if any Vegas reviews are looking for a Whitney Houston, there's only one that I could see them.
We're ready for you. Come calling.
Let me ask you this. Do you consider yourself a drag performer? You're performing in drag.
Sure.
But I also feel like how do I want to put this? Would you qualify to be on Drag Race? Do you have a drag persona that's like your alter ego?
I do not. That's the thing. I'm an actor who does drag.
Uh-huh.
And that's that's the distinction. Drag is a special skill as opposed to a profession for me. Acting is my profession,
Right.
which is why I approach, Whitney as a character, as I would approach any other character. You know what I mean?
So did you consider doing that second set at that party as Kevin?
Well,
I mean, I know it's Halloween. But...
It was Halloween. I was already in face and in drag.
Oh, got it.
And so there was that. And then the second set, like we started off with River Deep Mountain High, which is also a female belty song. So I thought it would be fine and perfect. Yeah, that's basically it.
But you do perform as you, right?
Oh, all the time.
Yeah.
All over the place. Absolutely. Absolutely. I prefer performing as Kevin, actually. And that's why I say I'm an actor who does drag.
Got it.
Absolutely. No.
I do think that's an important and interesting distinction.
It is. It
So
is.
thanks for clarifying.
Thank you. No problem. No problem.
So we are coming up on the end of the show.
Oh,
we have a few minutes
time
left.
flew.
I know. Well, you're so easy to talk to, and one of my favorite
So are
things
you.
about having in people that I've long known and admired is that we can have the conversation. And I think so often you get a sense of someone seeing them on stage like, man, I bet we'd be friends in real life. Yeah. And sometimes it's dangerous to meet your heroes, because if they're not who you imagine them to be, it can be heartbreaking. But sometimes you're like, yep, I was right. And that approachability that comes across on stage is real. And hopefully the conversation that you and I are having will allow other people to see and understand you as the man, not just as the character.
Thank you. That is amazingly well said.
Thanks.
Wow.
I do want to take a moment to talk about, as I do at the end of every show, about a charity that is near and dear to your heart. And it happens to be one that is near and dear to my heart.
Yay.
As I like to say, there's no point in having a public platform of any kind if you're not using it to make the world a better place. So
right.
I like to use these airwaves and this microphone to amplify the causes that are important to my guests.
That's right.
Which cause have you chosen to bring to us today?
I have chosen Cyndi Lauper's True Colors Fund, which raises money and for opportunities and both in the arts but especially housing for homeless LGBTQ youth. And as we know, unfortunately, especially in New York City, an overwhelming percent of those youth are people of color. And she does amazing work with this foundation, and it's not just something that she puts her name on. She really believes in it. She really is hands-on involved with the running of the organization, and I've seen some of the great results from the work that they do. And and especially with it being Pride Month, I think it's important to celebrate all of the milestones and also remember that we still have some ways to go. And I think that her fund is one of the organizations that is working to continue to make things better.
Agreed. The website is truecolorsunited.org. And I am going to make a donation in your honor today.
Oh, you're amazing.
And I hope that everyone listening will do the same. Again, one of the things that I say every week is a whole bunch of little drops can make a big splash. And I'm going to be one of those drops, and I hope everybody else will too. We do still have a few more minutes, so there are a couple of other questions that I didn't know if we'd have time to get to.
Bring it.
But I'm curious as to like dream roles that you have. What if you could? Let's step away from the idea of originating a role, because I can imagine that that's really the dream. But if there's a role in the theatrical canon that you imagine yourself playing, what would that be?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's tough for me because I don't think that I fit a lot of the traditional roles that are written for men, especially black men in musical theater. So there aren't that many roles that I'm just, salivating to do. I played Jesus in Jesus Christ Superstar my senior year in college. I'd love to revisit that. But again, I'm not, I also played Simon on tour in Jesus Christ Superstar. And I love that show, but I'm not, if you take out originating something or having something written and tailored for my specific talents, then yeah, there aren't a whole bunch of, classic musical theater roles that I'm dying to do. But I love theater, and
Sure,
I'm
yeah.
going to play the Scarecrow again in the Wiz
Right.
this summer
You
at
are?
Sacramento Music Circus.
Oh, that's
I
great.
am. So I love theater, but
I'm actually really glad that you went there, because I think it could have been really easy for you to be like, to just pull out a classic musical theater role and just rattle something off for the sake of having an answer. But I do think that for as progressive as, the theater can be, and the community, and as accepting as the community can be, it is still largely an industry run by straight white men, or at least white men.
yes,
And,
yes.
And that the roles, while it's starting to shift and change, but in terms of the classical musical theater canon, it reminds me of Billy Porter, who originated the role of Lola, who
That's
said
right.
in an interview that he did with me a couple of years ago when his tribute to Richard Rodgers album came out, he said that it never occurred to him that he could originate a role, that he thought that he would be, he dreamed of being the first black Bobby and Company,
Right.
or, the first replacement of color of this, or maybe the first out gay such and such. But the idea that a role would come along that was so similar to who he is as a person, the idea was so foreign that it kind of never occurred to him to hope for that. And I think being a professional musical theater actor and loving it and wanting to do it and being available to do it is really, and even being like supremely talented enough to do it, is really different than having the opportunities and the roles that you fit.
That's right.
So,
And I mean, and especially when you're talking about Broadway, Broadway is commercial, and and there's so much money that goes into it. I've gotten to play wonderful roles in summer stock and small regional theaters where I've been more satisfied, than some of the bigger theaters that I've played, because they're able to take more chances with casting, but yeah, it's and listen, let's just lay it out there. Like Billy says, when the industry knows that you're gay and out and you're black, it becomes tough sometimes to see you as anything other than those things. So that's what I mean when I say I've gotten to play, Huck Finn or Will Parker or Flick and Violet. I got to play at the Weather Vane, whereas I
love that show.
do not get called in for, the off-Broadway or even do you know what I mean? Here in New York City.
Yeah.
Because perceptions sometimes are reality, especially when you're talking about casting. So that's just a reality and a fact. And then on top of that, frankly, a lot of those things don't speak to me. I mean, being Bobby and Company doesn't speak to me as a performer. My heart doesn't light up when I think of doing that. So why would I covet those roles?
right. Yeah, well said. I mean, I was about to be like, I don't know you as well as you know yourself, which is like the world's most obvious statement. Duh. But there are a few, when I think about classical musical theater roles, there are a few that I feel like you could put a unique spin on that would make it not you fitting the role, but like twisting the role to fit you in a really enlightening way. Like, I think if you played like the MC in Cabaret.
Right, you see, and I thought about that. Oh, okay, Nicely Johnson in Guys and Dolls.
Yeah.
I did that in high school, and that sounds funny, but we had an amazing theater program.
I don't
St.
think that
John's
sounds
Jesuit.
funny.
Katie Holmes actually did our shows. Hi, Katie. She's so sweet, and. But that's a role that, you wouldn't think of a skinny black gay guy playing. I love doing it.
You can roll
though.
dice with the best of them.
Exactly. Oh, I did it. And I love to sit down and rocking the boat. And then Titus Burgess did it on Broadway, a bunch of years later. So, there have been strides made for
Right.
sure.
Well, let's just get some original stuff out there.
Exactly.
I mean, I think so many of the male roles too are a different vocal range than you.
That's
like,
what I mean. Yes,
you know,
absolutely.
Like I could see you being a really fascinating Sweeney Todd, but it's not the right voice part. You know.
Correct. That's what I mean. And again, that's why I've always believed in, and my mentor, Father Torina, also used to tell me, you know, you have to create your own work.
Yeah.
Billy Porter even says that, I think he says George C. Wolfe told him, don't wait for someone to give you permission to practice your art.
What a perfect summary of
Yes.
that. And you're doing it. And you're doing it this week. You're doing your classic Whitney Alive at Joe's Pub.
I am. Oh, and if you miss us at Joe's Pub, you can also catch us at the Gay Pride Parade on the Procter & Gamble float as Whitney.
Amazing.
So I'll
and by
be
the
singing
way,
a few
there's also
times.
all these YouTube performances that you can find, and there were a couple that I clicked on, and I was like, oh, this is an actual Whitney Houston performance. It's mislabeled. And I was like, oh, nope.
Yes!
This is not actually
Yes!
Whitney. This
Good
is Kevin as
on
Whitney.
you. Thank you.
You can find Kevin on Twitter at ksmithkirkwood and Instagram at Kevin Smith Kirkwood. You can, as I said, find him at Joe's Pub Monday, June 24th at 9:30 p.m. Tickets are as low as $30. And we're going to encourage you to support the True Colors Fund at truecolorsunited.org. I'm going to be making a donation. I hope you do too. Remember that you can hear Laura Heywood interviews every Monday and Wednesday live from noon to 1 Eastern. If you are a patron of dnrstudios.com/Laura, that also gets you every episode a week early. You can also listen for free and rate and review, please, on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. And remember that if you are a subscriber on dnrstudios.com/Laura, you get over 100 hours of additional content every week from Derek and Romaine and the Taylor Strecker Show, Happy Campers, I Love My Wife, and many more. You can find me on social media at Broadway Girl NYC across all of the platforms, and at lauraheywoodmedia.com. Kevin, it has been such an honor to have you. And I can't wait to see you perform as Whitney and to see you perform as you and to launch a new cabaret award for costuming with you.
That's right.
And I'm very grateful to count you as a friend. So thank you for coming and being part of the show today.
And thank you so much for having me, Laura.
You're just a delight. Again, those social media sites for Kevin are K. Smith Kirkwood on Twitter and Kevin Smith Kirkwood on Instagram. I'm Laura Heywood, and this is Laura Heywood Interviews.
3 minutes to showtime.